All right, I have 1 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and begin. For those of you that have joined us, this meeting is being recorded, so don't feel like you feverishly have to take notes, and we will also make these slides available to you along with the recording after the meeting concludes. We're going to have a short presentation from officials with the South Carolina Department of Education, and then we're going to turn it over to some staff at Class Wallet for another presentation. You can ask questions throughout any of the presentations by using either the chat function or the Q&A function. Either one will work. We will stop and answer some of those questions as we work through these various presentations. But you should see on your screen a chat function and a Q&A, and either one of them will work for providing comments or asking questions throughout the presentation. We appreciate you all joining us, and I'm going to turn it over to John Payne, who's our Deputy Superintendent who has been overseeing these emergency funds. So, Dr. Payne, whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Ryan, and good afternoon, colleagues in our private schools. As Ryan said, I'm John Payne. I'm Deputy Superintendent, and appreciate all of you joining for this technical assistance session on our Emergency Assistance to Non-Public Schools program. It has been quite a bit of work. This has been a novel project that's never existed before, so we appreciate everyone's patience and attendance, and that is certainly echoed by our State Superintendent, Molly Spearman. The purpose of today's session is to provide you again with an overview of our South Carolina EANS program as authorized by the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act. And the goal of this session is to provide you, as recipients of assistance under our EANS program, with an understanding of the claims submission process through our partner, Class Wallet, as well as procurement requirements, asset tracking, and transfer of ownership procedures. So we do have a lot of information to cover today, and to underscore what Mr. Brown said, please feel free to put any questions in the Q&A or in the chat function, and we will stop at various points and review those questions. The ones that we can answer readily, we will happily do so. And for anything that might take us a little more discussion to respond to, we will do that in the form of a frequently asked questions document that we will post on our EANS website. This has been a momentous undertaking, and as I have talked to colleagues in other states as well as our partners, I'm very proud of the collaboration that we have in South Carolina and the work that we've done. This work could not have been possible without the partnership and the collaboration, the insight, the thought partnering with our private school associations here in South Carolina. And so I want to take just a moment to acknowledge and to thank publicly, again, the South Carolina Catholic Diocese, the Diocese of Charleston, the Palmetto Association of Independent Schools, the South Carolina Independent Schools Association, and the South Carolina Association of Christian Schools. We have had ongoing conversations as we have been thinking together, working together to plan this out in the most streamlined manner possible, recognizing that we hit bumps along the way, but again, trying to do this as efficiently and as meaningfully as possible to make these funds available for you for reimbursement or future services. So thank you to all of these partners. So we're going to begin with giving you an overview, which we provided in our initial TA session, but we want to give you another overview or just revisit that with our EANS program. Back in December, on December 27th, 2020, this Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, or CRRSA, law was signed into law by the president. And in that law, it provided $2.75 billion nationwide in assistance under the Emergency Assistance to Non-Public Schools program as part of the Governor's Emergency Education Relief, or GEER 2 fund. As part of that, South Carolina received $39,981,327 to provide assistance to non-public, not-for-profit schools affected by the pandemic. As you know, we had an application window that was open from March 1st until March 31st, 2021. As applications came in, we reviewed it, and if we needed additional information, we contacted you to get that additional information. Going into this, we didn't know how many private schools would apply, what the requests would be. And so as we got all of the applications in, the request for services and reimbursements totaled $48 million, which of course is more than the funds available that we have under our South Carolina EANS program. So what we did is we gave you conditional approval for all reasonable, allowable, and necessary requests within 30 days of getting your application. We gave those conditional amounts and made some adjustments to that. Priority in adjustments was given to schools who enroll low-income students and were most impacted or affected by the pandemic. So the total assistance for each school was compared to the number of low-income students that you reported, which provided us with a per low-income pupil amount. We then applied a cap to the per low-income pupil amount for each school, revised the totals, and accounting for processing fees, that came up to, as you see, $39,981,327. So we've got all of the funds budgeted. And for those schools that were affected, you were notified of those adjustments and you were able to revise your request and submit that back to us. Final approvals of all funds were delivered, sent to you on May 27th, 2021. So at this point, we're going to stop for just a moment and see if there are any questions that have come in the chat while we switch over to ClassWallet for their presentation. Again, we will be using ClassWallet, who is our partner vendor to manage these funds, and they're going to go into detail to tell you about their system and all that you will need to do now that you have been informed of the funds that will be available to you, how you will claim reimbursements, and then process for future services. So I'll stop a minute and see if there are any questions.
John, I've just gotten one question, and it's a procurement question. The question is, I understand that amounts more than $10,000 require multiple quotes. What about curriculum that was approved? Often there is only one vendor for each program. So I'm not sure if you or Kathy or Elsie want to speak to that, but that's the only question we've received thus far.
Absolutely, and we're going to touch on that, and after ClassWallet's presentation, we're going to talk about procurement, and in that specific instance, it may be one where we would just need to talk with that individual school for some additional information. All right, so let's switch over to ClassWallet. And we are happily joined by Anna-Lorraine Parenton. I hope I got your name, Anna-Lorraine, correct, and Joanna Jablon from ClassWallet.
Thank you. And let me present for you. Pardon me.
And I would just remind everyone that these slides will be provided afterwards, and the meeting is being recorded. And of course, as you have questions, you can put them either in the chat or the Q&A function.
To everyone in attendance, welcome, and I'd like to thank you for joining us. Thank you to the South Carolina Department of Education for coordinating today's webinar as well. The session today is for fiscal agents at schools that were awarded the EANS funds, and fiscal agents are responsible for submitting documentation to the department for the purposes of requesting reimbursements and payments and managing the fiscal oversight of the program on behalf of the school. My name is Joanna Jablon, and I'm an account manager here at ClassWallet. We're excited to work with everyone here and hope to provide all the information you need to utilize your EANS funds using the ClassWallet platform. For the agenda today, We're going to go through the ClassWallet platform and cover the following: how to access your ClassWallet account and navigate your way around your homepage, first time and subsequent logins, how to accept the affidavit, and we're also going to cover ways that the funds can be used. So reimbursements, when it comes to linking your bank account and submitting receipts, service provider payments, then we'll go over other important information such as category selection requirement, confirmation emails that you can expect to receive, accessing your reports, the approval timeline, notes around approvals, rejections, and deadlines, general information about security, and lastly, we'll address where you can go for additional support from ClassWallet. For the school account holders, we're pleased to announce that the South Carolina Department of Education is using ClassWallet, an online funds management platform to streamline the management of the Emergency Assistance to Non-Public Schools, or EANS as it's better known. Eligible non-public schools can use these funds to make payments through vetted and pre-approved service providers or submit receipts for reimbursement of purchases made to address educational disruptions resulting from COVID-19. The first step to accessing your account is receipt of the welcome email from ClassWallet. These emails will be sent by the end of the day Monday, June 7th, to the school contacts listed in the EANS application. If you do not receive the email, please check your spam, junk, or promotions folders, or let us know via email at help@classwallet.com. Once again, that's help@classwallet.com. Once you receive the welcome email on Monday, you can set up the credentials and banking information for reimbursements. Then, once funding is received and allocated to your accounts, a second notice will be sent letting you know that you may begin making claims. Accessing your account. For first-time logins, to access your account, you will need to click on the link in the welcome email, or you can go to app.classwallet.com and click on the First Time Login button. Next, you will enter your email address, click I'm not a robot, and then click the blue button to verify this. ClassWallet, or more specifically, info@classwallet.com, will send you an email to verify your account. Click Login in that email. Next, you will create the login information that you will use to access your account moving forward. Please be sure to whitelist or save info@classwallet.com as a safe sender to ensure that you receive important system-generated emails. For subsequent logins, when you're ready to go log in, please go to app.classwallet.com and simply enter your email and the password that you've created. You'll want to bookmark this login page to access your account moving forward. Once you're in your account, these are the tiles and menu options that you'll find within your ClassWallet homepage. Updates gives you important ClassWallet system notifications. Balance allows you to view your balance. Reimbursement, this allows you to link your bank account, verify it, and submit receipts. Please be aware that this tile will change based on where you are in the process. Pay vendor, this tile allows you to issue a direct payment to registered service providers. Reports is where you can view funds received and all reimbursement and payment transaction details. Support is where you can find training videos, frequently asked questions, or contact our robust support department. Account settings, this is where you can edit basic information, update your password or security question and answer. Please note that this is the view for the fiscal agent. If you're a school administrator with report view only, Your home page will not include the reimbursement or pay vendor modules. Now, before funds can be spent, the fiscal agent must read through and accept the affidavit as outlined by the U.S. Department of Education and the South Carolina Department of Education. Upon logging in for the first time, you will see the affidavit related to the funds made available to you. You have three options for the affidavit. The first and recommended is to accept. If you do this, you will see your balance displayed and can issue payments to registered providers or submit receipts for reimbursement. If you choose to skip for now, you will be taken to your ClassWallet account, but your balance related to these funds will display as $0. You must click on the blue affidavit link in order to display the affidavit and click accept in order to use your funds. You can view instructions here, the link below. Now, if you happen to click reject, you will get a confirmation message and you can confirm your rejection to use the funds or click go back to change your selection. If you find that you've accidentally rejected the affidavit, please contact ClassWallet support so we can reset the selection for you. Ways to use your EANS funds. Right now, we're going to dive into the ways in which you can use your EANS Awards funds. Once your ClassWallet balance reflects the EANS funds, you can link your bank account and submit receipts for a direct reimbursement via ACH or issue payments to registered service providers. These are the tiles that you will see on your homepage. Reimbursement. This is where you will go to start the process of linking and verifying your bank account and then submitting those receipts for reimbursement. Pay vendor. This is where you will go to pay registered service providers. If you've made a purchase with other vendors and wish to seek reimbursement, you can do so by linking your bank account and submitting the receipts and paid invoices through your ClassWallet account. You'll need to submit a W-9 as one of the required steps to linking your bank account, so please have that information handy. I'll explain the necessary steps now. The first step is to link your bank account. You'll be required to enter your name, address, banking information, complete the W-9, etc. You'll only need to link your bank account once, unless, of course, you change banks. In that case, you'll simply want to reach out to us so our support team can assist you further with that change. The second step is that within 1 to 2 business days, we will send you micro deposits. These are deposits that are amounts less than 10 cents each. You will find them on your banking activity or statement, and you'll be required to enter those amounts exactly within the platform once you see them on your bank account. There are step-by-step instructions by clicking to the link in the help article provided at the bottom of this slide. Once your bank account has been verified, you can start a reimbursement and submit receipts by either scanning receipts using a desktop printer and submitting them through the ClassWallet online application, or by taking a photo using your smartphone and submitting them through the ClassWallet mobile-friendly website. There are links to our help pages here, but I'd like to review with you exactly what you'll be doing. Because there is a video I'd like you to watch later, I'm just going to summarize it briefly for you. For reimbursements, to begin, once you're set up, of course, you will select Start New Reimbursement from the menu or click the Start New Reimbursement button on your home screen tile. You can upload as many images as necessary to document the transaction. After that, you will just need to choose which purse you want to use and make sure all of the information is correct. You can use funds from more than one purse, but you must choose at least one. Now, this is providing that you have more than one purse available. You may only have one. Once complete, you'll want to click the green Next button and your reimbursement request will be submitted to your administrator. Funds which are not available for reimbursement will be grayed out and marked restricted from reimbursement. You still need to use those funds. You'll just need to contact your administrator. Once you've clicked that step, you will have a chance to review your reimbursement request before submitting it, and your administrator will be notified of the pending request, and it will be up to them to approve it. Once that request has been approved, a transfer will be initiated to your bank account. Now, please note you can request less money than the total receipt amount. Perhaps you bought some personal items while shopping, but you cannot request a reimbursement for more than the total receipt amount. Once again, I encourage you to watch that video once this presentation is over and browse our knowledge base for other useful articles and videos. Now, please keep in mind any videos and articles that we review may not accurately represent the settings of your specific organization. And also, you will be required to select the applicable category upon checking out, and we'll cover categories shortly. All purchases, along with the proper uploaded documents, will be sent to the program administrators for audit, review, and are subject to approval. To avoid any delays or rejections of your requests, be sure to submit the proper documentation. Proper documentation includes a detailed invoice or bill of sale, a copy of a cleared check or credit or debit card statement for the same amount of each reimbursable item or total, and written justification may be required to ensure the expenditures align with the requirements. Acceptable file types include PDF, JPEG, and PNG. To get your service provider registered, you will need to be able to receive payments using the EANS funds, so service providers will need to register and become an approved provider. They can go to the link above the image to begin this process. Please do not attempt to complete this form on behalf of the provider. Once the provider has completed the registration and verification process, you will be able to find them in the vendor list and issue payments for eligible services. These are the steps for a service provider to be listed within the ClassWallet platform. The first step is pre-registration, and it's followed by the review and approval of South Carolina Department of Education. Once approved by the South Carolina Department of Education, ClassWallet will register the vendors and accounts will be linked. The ClassWallet account is then verified, and the vendor will be made visible on our platform. Service providers will be displayed no sooner than 4 business days after they complete the pre-registration form, as the timeline will vary based on steps 2 and 4. Right now, we'll go over how to pay a service provider once they've completed the process. If your service providers are registered on ClassWallet, you can find them in the Pay Vendor module and Issue Payment. You will need to upload any invoices, statements, or other supporting documents, be they PDF, JPEG, or PNG format, so please have them ready. And you can view step-by-step instructions by clicking the link to the help article provided here. And I am also going to go over some of the details in the video that is also attached here, which I would highly encourage you to watch after this section as well. To pay a vendor, otherwise known as a service provider, you'll need to log into your ClassWallet application and select Pay Vendor. You can do this from the hamburger or 3-stripe menu in the top left or from the Pay Vendor tile. Select a vendor from the menu and you can search the list with predictive type, sort by letter, or just scroll down and select them. When you find your vendor, click the Select Vendor button, and the next step would be to upload your supporting documentation. If you have some, i.e. an invoice, a receipt, or a screenshot, then you can drag and drop the image in or click the Browse button to search in your saved image files. You can upload multiple documents in a single transaction. After that, you will just need to enter the amount for every image, and from there, you've got to choose which purse you want to use if you have more than one, and you can use funds from more than one purse if you have, but you must choose at least one. From there, you must choose an expense category, and you can choose multiple categories by checking the boxes next to the category types, but once again, you must choose at least one. From there, just review your transaction and submit it to your administrator. Now, that was the basic process for issuing payments to your service providers. Keep in mind that all of your payments will be submitted once again to program administrators for audit and review and are subject to approval. And also, videos and articles contained may not accurately represent the settings of your specific organization. But we definitely encourage you to check out our knowledge base for articles and videos. You'll find them extremely helpful. All payments will be reviewed and pre-approved by the designated program administrators. South Carolina Department of Education will require documentation that any service or assistance has been received in full before payment is made to vendors. To avoid delays or rejections of your requests, please be sure to submit the proper documentation. What that includes is an invoice, bona fide quote, or statement of work and verification that completion has been obtained if applicable. A work order, including final delivery date prior to approval of services or assistance, documentation that any service or assistance has been received in full, or written justification may be required to ensure the expenditures align with the requirements. Now, we'll go over some other important information. Upon submitting your reimbursement request or service provider payment, you will be required to select the appropriate category related to your transaction. You can select more than one if your transaction consists of items or services in multiple categories. The categories are the same across all methods, even though some categories may not be available for reimbursement. Samples of the categories can be found on screen. There is a link provided which gives your specific program information for additional details. You will receive the following emails after you submit reimbursement receipts or vendor payments. The first is confirmation of payment or reimbursement submission for the designated administrator to review. And the second is confirmation of the administrator's approval or rejection, along with any applicable comments. You have access within your ClassWallet account to view reports around your account activity. You can find these real-time reports through the Report tile found on the homepage or the sidebar menu. You can view your funding activity, reimbursement receipts, and documents for payments submitted through the platform. You can also view the status and any applicable comments from the approver within your order reports. Reimbursements and payments to providers can be expected to settle to the bank account linked within 2 to 10 business days of the administrator's approval. Below highlights the steps involved after a reimbursement or payment is submitted. Estimated at day 0, the user submits the reimbursement or service provider payment in their ClassWallet account. Varying between phase 0 and 2, typically in business days, the program administrators review submissions, and upon approval, an automated email is sent to the user informing them of the approval. Estimated day 2 through day 10 in business days, ClassWallet releases payment via ACH of the approved transaction to the school or provider. Bank settlement can also be expected within this time frame. Upon the administrator's approval of your reimbursement, you will receive notice of the approval. The fund transfer typically settles to the bank account you linked within 2 to 10 business days of the administrator's approval. Upon the administrator's approval of your payment to a registered service provider, the provider will receive confirmation of your payment along with the uploaded documents, and payment should settle to their bank account within 2 to 10 business days of the administrator's approval. Upon the administrator's rejection of your reimbursement or provider payment, all funds will be credited back to your ClassWallet account balance. You can find rejection notes or comments in the confirmation email. Inquiries related to the approval or rejection decision should be directed to the administrator listed in the confirmation emails. Please check your account and emails from ClassWallet and/or the program administrator related to any upcoming deadlines. September 30th of 2023 is the last day to submit receipts for reimbursement or issue a payment to service providers within your ClassWallet account. You have until 11:59 p.m. on the date above to submit documentation and spend the funds within your ClassWallet account. If you submit a reimbursement request or service provider payment close to the deadline, the designated approver or administrator will have time after the deadline to review your request and make the applicable decision. However, after the deadline, resubmission will not be permitted. All unspent balances will be returned to the state. Here at ClassWallet, we highly value your security. We have complete SOC 1 audits and spend a great deal of effort to ensure that our platform is secure. When it comes to sharing info and files, all data at ClassWallet is stored securely and classified according to the data classification policy. ClassWallet is SOC compliant and subject to annual reviews by third-party auditors with regards to our data security and privacy policies. All data transmitted over public and wireless networks is encrypted with strong encryption techniques. As far as user reimbursements, ClassWallet does not store our users' bank account information. When users provide their bank account information to establish an account for reimbursement, we capture that information securely through our SSL encrypted application. We immediately encrypt their data and create a token to share with our ACH partner. After the account is created with our partner, we erase the bank account data on the ClassWallet system. Our partner stores the bank account information independently of any personal information about the user. What they do store is never stored anywhere other than their encrypted vault-like servers that are protected both physically and electronically. Most of their storage servers are not even connected to the internet and can only be accessed by a single IP address, which allows them to send withdrawal and deposit requests directly to the bank. This severely limits the exposure of ClassWallet's users' financial information. When it comes to user support, we are here and so happy to help. You can find the support tile right on your homepage for easy access to frequently asked questions, videos, and ways to contact us. Our support team can assist you with any of the following application-related matters and so much more. Linking, deleting bank accounts, and verifying bank accounts, document upload for reimbursements and payments, as well as service provider registration status, reimbursement and provider payment statuses, process for adding and updating school administrators, and once again, much more. Any questions regarding EANS policies, guidelines, funding eligibility, and more can be found on the South Carolina EANS website. The link is featured at the bottom of this slide, and you may also email sceans@ed.sc.gov with any questions. To contact ClassWallet's user support by email, the email once again is help@classwallet.com, and we are available 8 to 8 Eastern, Monday through Friday, and 10 to 4 Eastern on Saturday. This concludes the information covered for school fiscal agents. And thank you all once again for your time, and a big thank you to the South Carolina Department of Education and to Anna Lauren Pamantuan for moderating this training session. My name is Joanna Jablon, and it has been an absolute pleasure outlining this program for you. Have a lovely day.
Thank you so much. And again, the slides, the recording, and presentation materials will be made available afterwards. We do have several questions, and you can, I'll go through those, and also if there are any additional questions, you can put those in the chat or in the Q&A function. But if our panelists are ready, I will go ahead and pose those questions to you all, recognizing that some of them may have been slightly covered in the presentation, or that we may have to get back to you. So there is a question as to reimbursement, and that question is, do we provide invoice and bank statement, or is it just one of them? Also, if it's a large invoice, say 80 pages, do they include all 80 pages or just the summary page?
Hi there, Ryan. Thank you for that question. This is Anna Loren at ClassWallet. While our platform does not have any known limitation on the number of pages a user can submit, I do think that it would be best to submit as much information as possible. That would be helpful for the state in determining whether or not the purchase or the reimbursement is allowable.
And Ryan, this is John. I would concur with their colleagues at ClassWallet. The more information that you can provide, the better. Again, what we will be looking at, and we're going to touch on this in a minute, is looking at what was in your approved application that you got final approval on, the items there, comparing it to what these various categories. So when you submit your claims for reimbursement or future services, they will be by those categories, those allowed uses. So again, the more information that you can provide, the better that will be in us not having to, follow up to ask for any additional documentation or information.
Thank you, John. And you touched on this a little bit, and I'm going to try to phrase this so that it makes sense. How do they handle expenses included in future expenses that were incurred after March 31st and have already been paid by the school in April and or May?
So if they're caught, this is John, I think if the costs have already been, if the private school has already paid, we would probably consider that a reimbursement. If there's something that has changed, so you had something that you included as a future service on your approved application, but you have since paid for it, do email us so that we can follow up with you individually and look at your specific situation and circumstances to give you specific guidance on what we would recommend that you do.
Thanks, John. And I think this next one is probably going to be for Anna Loren. Do we have to use a vendor on the list? What happens if we find someone less expensive that is not listed as a service provider?
Great question. So there is a list of vendors that will be available to you within ClassWallet. Those are those vendors that will pre-register, become approved by the state, and then ultimately become a vendor within the ClassWallet platform. So if you do not see them there when you first sign in, you can certainly direct them to the pre-registration form that is going to be included in the PowerPoint that users will be provided after this session. It may also be listed in the program EANS website for the state. You can always contact ClassWallet at help@classwallet.com and we can forward you that link as well.
Thank you. And here's another one on a similar vendor question. Do we need to submit a W-9 for the vendors when using the pay vendor option or just for reimbursements?
Also another great question. So for the school users, when you are submitting at least initiating the process for reimbursement, you will go through and link your bank account and submit that W-9. The vendors, when they register to become a vendor on ClassWallet, they'll go through the same process. But you, as a school account holder, will not need to submit a W-9 when, at least it's not a requirement on our side for you to submit a W-9 when issuing a payment to that direct pay vendor. John, if you do require that, we can certainly update our information so that the W-9 is included with submissions for payment requests to service providers.
Okay, and we'll confer internally and provide that guidance. It's a great question.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one appears to be a procurement type question. Says this is specific to the filtration system category. Our approval included a school specific quote from a SC EANS approved vendor for portable purification systems. That was the basis of the amount in our application for future service. As that was an approved vendor with a quote for our school, does that still require 2 additional quotes? And if we need to look at that one
Yeah, I
specifically,
think
I can send that
this
name.
this is John. Let's look at that individually. It's going to depend on the amount for that filtration system and the specific school. And some of your associations may have also assisted us in looking and obtaining quotes if it's over a threshold amount. But do let us know about that specifically, and we'll be happy to work with you and provide you with next steps and guidance on how to proceed.
Um, I've got 2 questions that are very similar, so I'm going to try to tie them together. The technology we were approved for has been updated to a different version. If it is the same type of item, is that allowable? And then the second question that's similar, if we were approved, for example, $50,000 in technology for say 100 laptops and 10 desktops, and then we determine it better to use 75 laptops and 25 desktops, as long as they don't exceed the approved amount, are they able to adjust within the categories?
This is John. I think as long as it's within that same category and that same dollar amount, we would be happy to work with those individual private schools and looking at your application. So I don't foresee an issue with that. Again, what I would suggest is that you reach out to us and let us set up a conversation with you so we can kind of look at the specifics and see how we can do to be as flexible and as nimble as possible, but at the same time, making sure that we're adhering to all the rules and requirements of the EANS program.
Okay. I do not have any additional questions that have come in yet. We can give people a few more moments to type those, or if there's any additional information we may need to move on to, I think it'd be a good time to do that, but no additional questions as of right now.
Okay, so I think if we can cue back up our slides. And again, thank you to Joanna and Anna Loren for your presentation with us and your partnership. For our private school colleagues on the call, we will again be posting this webinar as well as the slide deck to our EANS, our SC EANS website. And this will probably be one of those things that you may need to revisit several times because it is a lot of information and we recognize that. We also recognize that we are recording this on a Friday afternoon. So we certainly appreciate your patience and encourage you to come back and listen once the video is posted. and the slide deck is posted as well. So now we're going to talk about submitting claims with our EANS programs. Much of this, our colleagues at ClassWallet, but just to underline and underscore a few things that they said. So again, with reimbursements, you will provide ClassWallet with your banking information after creating your account to facilitate the transfer of funds for those approved reimbursements. You'll submit those claims, you'll provide your journal entries and other supporting documentation such as receipts or invoices through the ClassWallet system. We will review those claims to make sure again that they're allowable, reasonable, and necessary. Were again incurred after March 13th, 2020, and were included in your school's final approval for assistance. So if we see something that has not been reflected or negotiated in your application for which you got a final approval, or if we see something, we will probably follow up with you to get more information or to determine how to take next steps. So that's what we will be doing for reimbursement costs. In addition, it's very important to underline, so the way we are processing this, South Carolina operates on a state fiscal year that runs July 1st through June 30th of every year. For all federal funds, we give all the individuals that we work with a period of time after the close of the state fiscal year to get in all claims. This is true for public school districts and will also be true for our private schools and our SC EANS programs. So just be reminded that every year up until the end of this program, which is September 30th, 2023, by August the 15th, anything for reimbursement that you had from June 30th and before, you must get in the system. So for this specific year that we're in, any expenditure or any reimbursement that you are asking for an expense claimed from March 13th, 2020, which is as far back as we can go, through this upcoming June 30th, 2021, which is just here, as you know, in a few weeks, you must submit those claims to ClassWallet by August the 15th, 2021. That lets us close out the state fiscal year in our books. If we get a request for expenditures or reimbursements after that time period, we may not be able to approve it because we've already got that state fiscal year closed. It's also important to underscore again that reimbursements that are provided to you as private schools do not mean that you are a recipient of federal financial assistance. That is clearly spelled out in the EANS program within the SRSA law. This has come up, I think, in a question so far. We shared this with our initial TA session that we provided on our SC EANS program, but we do want to touch again on procurement thresholds for future purchases. As we shared before, all costs must be allowable. And what we mean by that is they must fall into one of those approved categories. All costs must be reasonable. And again, a reasonable cost is what a prudent person would pay for it. So the example I used before that I'll use again is, typically a laptop or a tablet, you could pick those up for about $500. If we see you're asking for us to pay for one that's $5,000, we would say that's probably not reasonable. So really we're looking at what's the average cost of this item. They also need to be necessary, and that means that you have documented you have got documentation or can provide it that it's somehow linked to, caused by, impacted by this COVID-19 pandemic. And lastly, your cost must be included in your school's final approval for assistance. Now, to touch back to something I said a minute ago, if there are nuanced changes, so you would plan to buy 75 laptops and 25 desktops, but you may want to change that to 50-50. As long as that total amount doesn't change, we would be happy to talk with you and see if we can allow that flexibility. But again, please contact us in advance before you were to put that claim or have your vendor put that claim into ClassWallet so that we can clearly know what we're looking at when we do get the information through the ClassWallet system. Anything up to $10,000, you just need one quote or one estimate on how much for the item. Anything that is over $10,000, we would need 3 bona fide quotes from qualified sources of supply. If you cannot obtain 3 quotes, you must provide proof that it was advertised on your website or provide proof that 3 quotes were attempted. Now, one of the questions, and was a very good question that came up earlier, was about what if it's the only one? In other words, this is the only one that we can provide. If that is the case, please let us, please contact us in advance. That might be considered something called a sole source. If it's copyrighted material, it could be exempt. So there's some different procurement requirements, and so we will, if that applies to your specific situation, please let us know. And we have an excellent procurement staff here, Elsie Montgomery, who is our Chief Procurement Officer, as well as Nancy Williams, our Chief Financial Officer, Kathy Hazelwood, our General Counsel, myself, Joshua Byers, who is our SE EANS coordinator. We will all circle up and review it and get that information to you. And just note that we will allow funding for the request of the lowest bid. And again, just being reminded that these are, at the end of the day, taxpayer money. And we want to make sure that we're good stewards of taxpayer money and trying to find the lowest bid and provide the lowest amount so that we can make the most use out of the money for which we are stewards. So this applies to all purchases other than Catapult. With Catapult, those are already assumed, and we do have an individual contract with Catapult Learning. So Catapult is separate and distinct. So those you can proceed forward with, and we've been working very closely with Catapult, our colleagues at Catapult Learning, who is our premier provider of a lot of our educational services under our SE EANS program. We do want to talk about equipment. Equipment is identified as any single item whose market price or purchase cost is $2,500 or more, or any technology device such as a laptop, a projector, an interactive monitor, or other device, regardless of how much it costs. So a $500 tablet would be considered equipment. Before you submit a claim for equipment, either reimbursement or for future services, here's what we'll need you to do. First, we need you to download and complete the equipment tracker found on our SE EANS website. We also need you to then download and complete the transfer of ownership form, also found on our SE EANS website, using this equipment tracker as an addendum. Then we will need you to email the equipment tracker in Excel format and a scanned copy of the signed transfer of ownership to our seeans@ed.sc.gov email address. We ask that you do this before you submit the claim. We will review the claim with all submitted documentation and will approve or deny or request if we need additional information. To show you a snapshot, this is what the equipment tracker looks like. It is an Excel spreadsheet. And so you would go in and put your school name, the total reimbursement, and then in each row, identify the equipment type. So is it a laptop, a tablet, a computer, software? Maybe it's some other equipment item that is not technology. You would need to provide the brand, the invoice date, the invoice number, the vendor or the service provider, the serial number for that piece of equipment, and the purchase cost. You would submit that with the transfer of ownership to the department. So this is what you will submit to the department. You'll see this column H, which is the SCDE tag number. We will send you those tags, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. So once a claim for equipment is approved, we will process the payment. What we will then do is we will send asset tags to the school, and they're basically kind of bar scan stickers that we will send those to you via US mail, and we will send you the equipment tracker via email. The equipment tracker will indicate which asset tag should be placed on which piece of equipment using those serial numbers that you provide. Then you should asset tag each of those items as directed. So if your asset tag, if your serial number is 123, we will tell you to put this tag on item 123. Then we will give you 30 days to return that acknowledgement to us that the devices have indeed been tagged. And that will enable us to ensure that all equipment is tagged for ownership. The department would own those items and they have been asset. We will have that inventory through the completion of this equipment tracker. All tagged equipment must be annually inventoried by the school. So on or around June 1st of each year, all of our non-public schools who received assistance for equipment will be provided with an inventory list and instructions on completing the annual inventory process. These steps include verifying physical condition of the devices, confirming that the correct asset tags are still affixed to that device, and so forth. Affirmation that the inventory has been complete and any items needing addressed must then be sent back to the Department of Education. And we ask that you complete this process prior to June 30th of each year. Again, as I mentioned a little earlier with respect to equipment, the transfer of ownership is required for any equipment purchased with Eanes funds and must be completed prior to distribution of funds through ClassWallet. Again, using that equipment tracker as an addendum to indicate which devices are included. Asset values will be monitored throughout the Eanes funding period, again through September 30th, 2023. So we will keep a look on what is the value of this equipment. At the end of the Eanes period, or on or around October 1st, 2023, the department will make the determination regarding the disposition of assets, and we will have to follow, as we are required, state rules on disposition of assets. A few private schools included leases as part of your request. So if your school was approved for a lease, please provide a copy of that lease for our review so that we can evaluate those on an individual basis. Some of you are using prospective reimbursements where you have made a lease. You've entered into a lease agreement for, say, some computer devices, but you haven't yet made the payments. And so that would also be true for our prospective reimbursement. So payments not yet made under a lease agreement may be paid by the school and reimbursed. We would consider that a prospective reimbursement through our Eanes program. So now we're at the next steps. Where are we? ClassWallet, as they shared, will send a welcome email to your authorized representatives, and those are your points of contact from your applications, to each school after the accounts have been set up. Then they will send a second notice shortly thereafter when funds are allocated to your school's accounts and are available to use. What we are asking you is that you please allow the department time for review of all documentation. We anticipate a large push for reimbursement that's going to take place initially. Some things, like if you have a claim for a reimbursement for PPE or cleaning supplies, as long as you've got the documentation, that may not take a lot of time to get that turned around, but certainly, things like equipment, large purchases, leasing agreements will probably take more extensive review. And so what we do ask is for your continued patience and understanding. What we want to do is we want to do this right versus doing it right now. And so we will act and move as swiftly as we can, but also having to make sure that we are dotting all of our I's and crossing all of our T's with these funds as we work collaboratively together. We do have a number of resources available for you. So included on this slide is our SC Eanes website. We also include the allowable uses for Eanes Fund. These are the categories When you log into ClassWallet, you'll see these same categories as reimbursements, and then again for future services. And those will be the categories that you will use and select when you request reimbursement or your vendors request funds for future services. We're also including the U.S. Department of Education's EANS website, as well as the EANS Frequently Asked Questions document. We do have 2 dedicated email addresses. So if you have questions about programs, about your specific applications, if you have equipment, large purchases, any of the number of things that we've talked about during this technical assistance session, do please email our sceans@ed.sc.gov email address. And as our colleagues from ClassWallet say, if you have technical questions with respect to ClassWallet, please email them at help@classwallet.com. And at this point, I believe, Ryan, we will stop to see any remaining questions that may have come up.
Thanks, John. A couple of questions, mainly related to the equipment. First one is regarding insurance. Can you provide information on required insurance coverage for equipment purchased through the EANS program? Since the equipment is not owned by the school and instead by the department, how do we properly ensure coverage in case of theft, fire, etc.?
I'm going to see if one of my colleagues wants to attend to that one, or we could always check on that and follow back up.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'll just go ahead and go to the next one, and it may be a similar one. What does disposition of assets mean here for equipment? Does that mean there's a possibility we would lose the equipment after the EANS period ends?
We are still looking through that and trying to make those determinations. So it is not it's our hope that they would not, but again, we have to follow state disposition rules. So we will be providing more information well before we get close to that June 30th, 2023 deadline.
And John, there's several questions that we've gotten, not related to EANS 1, but related to EANS 2. So can you share any information at this time about the second round of EANS funding?
So there was EANS 2 that was authorized by the American Rescue Plan that was passed by the current Congress and the current president. We are continuing to collaborate with the governor's office. I'm not sure whether or not the U.S. Department of Education has made available the application for EANS 2, and if so, whether or not the governor has applied. It's my impression that we haven't yet. So we will provide more information about EANS 2 as we learn more about where we are with that application submission and approval. But there is, so what I can say is, yes, there is an EANS 2 program. There will be no reimbursements with EANS 2, but as we get more information and develop that and determine which way how we will going to be progressing forward with that, we will certainly provide that information to our private school partners and our private school associations.
Okay. I've got one last question. I'm not sure who it's best directed at, but the question is, some of the items we have requested as future purchases will have to be purchased by us. The examples are given are gas for buses, face coverings, etc. Will we submit those as reimbursements after they purchase?
I believe the answer would be yes, but again, if that specifically applies to you, do let us know so that we can make sure, if that is the case, that we can have a conversation about whether or not we can make adjustments. In other words, if we've got it for future service, move it to reimbursement, we can make those adjustments. So do please reach out to us and let us know so that we can look at this. Again, one of the things I'd like to underscore for everyone on the call is that, and I've spent many years working and administering federal education funds and federal education programs. And this is a brand new program. This is never in the history of federal education funding, this is one that has never existed before. So we have been trying to do the best we can and make the best decisions we can. So I share that to say there'll be questions that come up that we're going to have to work together and put our heads together and figure out. And we're committed to doing that. And I hope you're committed to being thought partners with us to help get it figured out. So again, anytime those questions come up, do please feel free to email, reach out to us and let us think through and have those conversations and see what we can do. If we can, we will. And if we're not, then we will have to make that decision too.
Thank you, John. And we got a question about the previous webinar regarding this program and where this recording will be posted. We'll also send it out, but I'm going to put in the chat here the link to our dedicated EANS website. But we will also send this out to all the attendees as well when the materials are available. So that is there in the chat. Do not have any other questions. There's a question when you say let us know or reach out to us, who are we contacting? And I think you should see two email addresses on your screen. So you have one for ClassWallet and one for the Department of Ed. So those would be either one of those individuals or both. Maybe something we have to confer with one another about.
That is correct, Ryan. So if you have questions, please email our SCEANS@ed.sc.gov. That is an email account that multiple staff have access to. Joshua Byers is our SCEANS coordinator and is leading that. Most or many of you have probably been in contact with Joshua. And so he will help facilitate that and set those kind of discussions up. And if it's something we can handle through email, or if it's something that we need to have a phone call or a virtual meeting about, we're happy to do that too.
All right. I don't believe I'm going to do one final check. Okay, I do have one question that was submitted that we did not address. It says, if we were paying the vendor through direct pay, how would we provide serial numbers before we have the equipment?
That's a very good question. So let us confer on that one, and we will put some guidance out on that specific question.
All right. I believe that is all the questions that we've received.
Okay.
This is obviously being recorded. I will leave the chat. If there isn't any other further information, John, I will leave the chat and Q&A up for a few more minutes just so people can submit questions and we can include those in an FAQ document.
Perfect. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for facilitating this discussion, and for all of you who have joined our technical assistance session, thank you for joining. I know it's a lot of information. I am personally excited by this approach and the work that we're getting ready to do together. It's historic in terms of a public-private partnership. Again, we will be figuring this out even more as we go along, and anticipate we will hit bumps along the way, but just know that we're committed to working with you and making these funds and programs available. And at the end of the day, what we want to make sure is that for all of the children in our public and private schools in South Carolina, that we are able to address the impact that COVID-19 has had and continues to have on our students' learning and accelerate their learning to places even beyond where they were before. So thank you for everything that all of you are doing to continue educating South Carolina's children And from all of us at the department, we look forward to continued work together.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much from me and Anna Lauren.